Okay. Yeah, first of all, thanks for taking the time to attend this webinar today. I appreciate you taking some time out of your day. I know everyone has a busy schedule. As Mark mentioned, my name is Kieran and I've been with Ash for over 10 years. This webinar is intended to be an overview of the powerful Omni Core apps and what it can do for your inspection applications. So I'll just start by looking at the front panel briefly. You can see there's various functions available. All of these functions are available on the on-screen software, which we're going to see in a few minutes. But just to give you an idea of the camera system, it's quite compact. It's mounted here on a track stand. So you can see there's a focus block here. And we have various functions such as overview. You have image brightness, magnification, ring light intensity, manual focus. You have an integrated ring light here, which is detachable and is powered via the Omni system, so there's no desk clutter or external power supplies. We also have other options there like a diffuse dome light and UV lighting. So we'll just have a brief look at the Omni setup. This is it on the stand looking at, it's like an intravenous molded part from medical device. And you can see that, you know, it's set up with the part under the camera on a backlight, and you have intensity control on this stand as well. So I'm going to switch over to the actual live feed from the Omni camera. So you can see here on the right we have a toolbar. This is where all the functions and apps live. So at the moment I'm at full magnification for this lens. So to give you an idea of the impressive magnification range, if I click overview here on the toolbar, the system's going to zoom back to the lowest, which is about 2 or 3x. And you can see that massive field of view as well. I'll just go back in. So first off, that's a huge plus compared to an optical system. And that's one of the big things that people love about the digital systems. So I'm going to go straight into the first app, which is 2D measurement, annotation, and Graticules. So you've probably used 2D measurement software before on a PC. Well, all this software is integrated into the camera, and it's a HD cable direct to the monitor, so there's no PC involved. So if I click on this ruler here on the toolbar, and I just click this magnet, which basically means edge detection, I'll enable a preview there so you can see what it's seeing. So you can see the system is clearly identifying those edges on the part. So when we draw our measurements, we don't even have to be exactly on the edge of the part. We can release it near the part. We can do 3-point circle. We can do vertical, horizontal, point to point. We can do angles, radius. We can annotate. So if we want to leave a message, this file may be recorded for quality control purposes. We need to state something, or it may be passed to a supplier or a customer, and you might want to reference something. So we can save this file by clicking on this floppy disk icon. And we have two options. We can save as an image, which is a JPEG or a bitmap, but I want to save it as a measurement because I want to retain that information about the measurements. I might want to edit them later. So we'll just call it number 4. So that's saved as a proprietary .ash file, which is unique to the Omni system. So now that I've done that, I can actually recall that file and do what I like with it in the future. Also, when you save a measurement file, it doesn't even have to have measurements on it. It can be what we call a graticule. So down here we have a little icon. This is the Graticule app. So I've created one earlier, and I've called it Mechano Graticule. What that does is it basically overlays lines or any shapes on the screen. So it's like a digital template or digital overlay. And what that means in practice is an operator can pass the part underneath, and they can quickly make the decision: is it pass, fail, is it go or no go? So these lines here on screen tell the operator anything outside of this line should be a pass. Particularly useful in high volume operations. And what most companies would do is, when they have high volume parts, they would have a fixture or a jig on the stand, so that the operator doesn't have to place the objects by eye. It's in the same position every time. So that's another powerful feature. We've seen a lot of manufacturing companies use that. So that's the 2D measurement and annotation and graticules. So a step on from that, we can also work with measurement files automatically. So the next app is the automatic measurements. And if I click down here, this is our extended toolbar. So we couldn't fit all the apps onto the toolbar because we're releasing 1 to 2 apps maybe every year. So if I click on auto, it's asking me to recall a measurement file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recall the file I created a minute ago and some others. So I can choose to execute one file, or I can run all of the files in the folder. So I'm going to run all the files, press play. The system automatically remembers the magnification level. It remembers the image brightness, the ring light intensity. And what it's doing is, based on the tolerances I've set, it's running these measurements and giving me a pass or fail. So it's after failing 2 measurements. So that was on the first drawing. So they were out of tolerance. The tolerance is 0.1 millimeter. So this is great. Now I have this information. So what do I do with it? I can save it as a .csv file, which is used then in further analysis, which are quality software or whatever process you've set up. So that's a powerful feature. You know, you're getting quantitative data from the system. And also with automatic measurement, there is a motorized stage option. So this means it'll do exactly what you just saw, but a motorized stage can actually move the part to the correct position on the camera. So again, the location of the part on the stage is actually stored in the measurement file. So the good thing about this is it can reduce or eliminate operator intervention. So again, if you have high volume, you want to standardize, streamline your measurement process. And all of this leads to more repeatable measurements, eliminate subjective judgment, reduce measurement time, which means reducing operational costs. So next up in the sort of measurement area is DXF Import. So again, this is an additional app. So if I click on this icon, it's asking me to import a file. So I have a DXF file on my USB key. I'm just going to select that, click the import button here. And that's imported a .dxf file. And this is a really powerful feature because it means that an R&D department or an engineer can pass over CAD drawings, which they would usually have anyways. They can bring them over to production or QC. So again, it's time saving. You don't have to create your templates or your measurement files. And this file can then be used further in the automatic measurement app. It actually comes in as a vector, so the objects are movable and editable. So that sums up the 2D measurement, automatic measurement, and DXF apps, which are some of the most powerful on the system. Next up, I'm gonna change the sample. We're gonna have a look at image stacking. So for this, I'm going to introduce a PCB. So I'm going to zoom in further, adjust my camera height. As you can see, the base of the board is in focus, but these components and switches are just not. So if I click on the image stacking icon here on the toolbar, I jog up to the highest focal point. I click start. The image is going to take 4 images, stitch them together, and we're going to have one still image that's in focus. So you can see everything's in focus now, even these large caps. So if I go back to live, that was what we were seeing beforehand. This is the result. So that's another powerful app, which means that you can document parts with varying heights in one single snapshot, which reduces inspection time. And we're going to stick with the PCB for the next app. So we have 2 image comparison options on the system. So the first one is image overlay. So I'll show you what that looks like now. So basically, if you've got your master or golden sample, and an operator needs to compare that to a production sample, so I'm going to create my master or golden. So when I click on the overlay app down here, it's on the toolbar here, it's asking me to recall the master. Now it's actually switching between live and still, which we can't recognize there because the images are both identical. But as an example, if I was to introduce foreign material or something out of place, you would quickly be able to see something's not right on the PCB. So this allows operators to rapidly identify differences, which again reduces inspection time, reduces fatigue on the operator. You know, if they were using an optical system, they'd be hunched over looking into the eyepiece, and they wouldn't have this capability. So that's overlay. For the next image comparison, we're going to do side by side, and this is the same principle, but it's splitting the screen and it has golden and production samples side by side. So I'll just go into automatic measurement. So the system is auto and manual. So I'm going to save this as my master. So now when I click on the split screen side by side app, again it's asking me for the master sample. So I can actually compare. Again, you're looking for any foreign material, any dents or abnormalities in the mold. And this can apply to any industry, to any part. This split screen here, we can control the middle line. We can even save this whole frame as an image, again, to report back to maybe a supplier or customer and to provide evidence of fault or lack of failure. So I'll just exit out of that. So that's image comparison. And the last app we can touch on is lens distortion correction. So I'm going to introduce the PCB again. So this is a really large PCB. And when you're using a lens like this, you can get the distortion on the perimeter. So you can see at the top there, this is bowed or warped. So we have a little icon here, lens distortion correction. So if I click on that, it's going to process the image and straighten out the edges. So we're presented with a still straight image. So to illustrate the before versus the after, that's before and that's after. So that's, again, another powerful feature. If you're looking at a large part, you want to reduce the distortion, so then you can pass on that image to a supplier or customer, or store it just for your own records. So lens distortion comes with the standard model, the base model. Also, what comes with the base model is networking functions such as sending an email from a Gmail account. So you can send emails directly from the system. You just plug in your Ethernet cable, set up your account. You can also store images to a network file location, so NFS. Again, that's a powerful feature. It saves people, passing files between different computers or departments. You can save your files to a central location where somebody else then can view them and process them as they require. And also we have user privileges. So this is basically like on your Windows PC, you can set up different accounts and you can restrict access to certain people. So here we have 3 users set up. If I were to add a user, I could pick and choose what apps they can actually use. So again, this is really powerful where you are in an environment where there's many different people working on the one system, where you have many different parts. You can standardize, streamline the process. So that sums up the apps on the system. That's an overview of the power of the Omni.